Eastern Dwarf Mistletoe in Lowland Black Spruce, specifically some modeling work I've been doing, is, as Marcella mentioned, I've been doing field work. So some days I get to be in stands like this. Absolutely gorgeous, glowing green, looks like a fairy tale. Some days the stands look like that. Heavily infested with mistletoe, changing species composition, and just not so fun to work in. And I really started wondering, why is it so different? Why is mistletoe in one place rather than another? So that led to the research that I'm talking about today. Specifically, my question was, are Eastern Dwarf mistletoe infestations predictable? And then if so, can we manage away from susceptibility? So here my objective was to identify environmental and stand structure characteristics that may influence the probability of infection. To do this, I took data from the Minnesota PIM database looking at stands in northeastern Minnesota and used random forest modeling. So random forest is very robust with different types of data, different distributions, so you kind of throw anything you have at it and get some good results. So from this database, I extracted a number of variables as predictors, some directly looking at different stand structure characteristics and some environmental characteristics. Some I created on my own, looking at presence and absence of commonly co-occurring species, as well as a couple distance metrics, looking at proximity to other black spruce and proximity to infected stands. Then for my response variable, I looked at mistletoe presence, and this I decided to define as any level of infestation, but only low levels of mortality. So I really want to get at what stands look like as they're becoming infected, not the resulting mortality and loss of volume. So once I had my data set and moved on to modeling, I had two initial model runs, including all those variables, one looking at all 4 stands in northeastern Minnesota, and one looking at just the black spruce stands. And once I had those initial model runs, I trimmed the trees, meaning that I removed the least important variables at each run to try to identify what really was most important for predicting mistletoe occurrence. And once I did that, I assessed the model looking at type 1 and type 2 errors, overall error, as well as variable importance. And then, of course, interpret the model and try to apply the results. So for variable importance, I looked at 2 metrics, mean decreased accuracy and mean decreased Gini. Accuracy is simply how much less accurate is this model when I remove this variable. And Gini is a measure of node purity. So as the model splits the data into groups, how effective is that variable at splitting it cleanly? So these are the 5 most important variables from both models. And as you can see, there are 4 that occur in both of these models, showing that they are likely very important for predicting mistletoe. So to get a little more into that, proximity to mistletoe was the most important variable by both metrics in both models. But basal area, stand age, and main species height were also important. When we looked at all 4 stands, the main species was important. It's black spruce, where dwarf mistletoe occurs. But then once I selected just for the black spruce, the main cover type density class was one of the most important variables. So black spruce is important, but then once you get within that, the density. And I also have the overall error rates up here, which, considering the size of the data, pretty reasonable. So implications. It looks like mistletoe can be predicted, at least to a certain extent. And some of these important variables are things we could manage for. However, when the downsides to random forest, it does not give you a good response curve, so we don't know if there's a clear threshold for these variables or not. Additionally, as Marcella mentioned, there is another dwarf mistletoe working its way towards Minnesota. And we could use the same modeling framework to maybe help manage that proactively before it really gets established and protect our jack pine. So I want to just thank the funding sources as well as Department of Forest Resources and the Solo Lab. And I have a few seconds left if anyone has any questions. Of course, I'll speak across the hall during the poster session.
What are the indications of similarities and differences with spruce mistletoe versus the jack pine mistletoe? Is it assumed that they behave basically similarly?
Pretty similarly, because so the American dwarf mistletoe or lodge pine dwarf mistletoe is, once it gets to jack pine, is also a mortality agent. So we think that it would behave fairly similarly, has similar ecology with spread and reproduction. We're hoping that the 2 systems are pretty equivalent.
All right, thank you, Ella.